Hey, this is Russ. Today I'm going to be making Chinese Char Siu. So what is Char Siu? Well, Char Siu is basically Chinese barbecue pork. Okay, I always like that because it's not barbecue, but they call it barbecue pork. And it's a staple in Chinese cuisine, so especially Cantonese cuisine. So I'm going to show you how to make this from scratch. All right, this is the easiest method to make Char Siu. Now, I'm not going to go through putting red colored dye on the char siu or anything like that. I'm just going to make it as it is, the easiest way you can do it. Now, all the ingredients that you can find can be found at any typical Asian supermarket, okay? You might even find it in your typical supermarket in the Asian aisle. So it's not hard to find any of these items. So let's get started. I'm going to show you how I do this. Now, you're going to want to use pork butt. Now, pork butt is not the butt of a pig, right? It's just called pork butt. You can look it up why that is on Google. But it's basically pork shoulder. Now, pork shoulder has a lot of fat, and you can see that they usually include a big fat cap. Now, you're not going to need that, so I will trim that thing totally down. And I know some people keep this and use it for other things, but no, I don't. I toss it, right? And I try to get it off as much as I can. I don't even leave a little bit because there's a lot of internal fat in a pork butt. So trim everything off that's on the outside because you're not going to need all that. Now, the reason we use pork butt is because it does have some fat, and that fat will eventually start rendering down into the meat as it's cooking, and that's what keeps things moist. So don't try doing this with pork loin or something like that. It's a little bit too dry if you do that. So you want pork butt to do it with, all right? Now, this particular pork butt also will have a bone in there. So this is bone-in pork butt. But this is an inexpensive piece of meat. Typically, you may find it for about $1.99 a pound. But I usually wait until it's on sale. So this particular one is 99 cents a pound. And where I live, there's a lot of grocery stores, and if one's not on sale that week, another one will be the week after. So I usually can find pork butt for about 99 cents a pound if I wait a little bit. So I'm removing the bone at this point, and I'm just speeding it up here. The bone you can keep for stock if you like, or just toss it. It's up to you. But I try my best to get as much of the meat off of the bone before I cook it. So I should be using a boning knife, I know, but this is easy. It's not that hard. So there's the bone. You can save that for stock if you like. Now, when I cut these pieces up, I cut them up in sizes that I can freeze it in. So I'll take a portion and put it in a bag, like a plastic bag, and then I'll freeze the finished product. Okay, and the more surface area you have by cutting it like this, the more the marinade's going to be able to go in there and actually flavor the meat. So you don't want to do this as one whole big piece. You want to cut it down to the portion sizes that you want. Now, I have seen people use what's called country ribs, which is essentially cut pork butt for you. So you'll pay more that way. But if you just take a full whole pork butt yourself and cut it yourself, it'll save you a lot more money. So this particular piece of meat was 7.5 pounds. The bone itself was a half a pound, and I would say maybe the fat cap was probably maybe another half a pound at most. So essentially, we're down to about 6.5 pounds of actual meat. So to make the marinade, I don't measure this 100% perfectly. I have the measurements here for you. You can follow that along. But essentially, about a half a cup of sugar. And then you want to take about a half a cup of soy sauce. Okay, that's probably the two things that I will measure out relatively decently. All right. So I don't look exactly at the line, and I think a lot of cooks don't do that either. They just kind of eyeball it. But half a cup of sugar, a half a cup of soy sauce. I'm just using the standard Kikkoman soy sauce here. And then you'll want to also get some Chinese rice wine. Okay, so or Chinese rice cooking wine, whatever they want to call it. And you'll want about a quarter cup, something like that, quarter cup of Chinese rice wine. And then so I'll do about a quarter cup, and again I just eyeball it. I'm not exact with it. You don't need to be for this particular marinade. The other ingredients are eyeballed too. In fact, I don't even measure it out. But you're going to need about 8 tablespoons of hoisin sauce and 2 tablespoons of sesame oil. So here, the sesame oil, I don't put it into the cup. I just kind of look at it and say, yeah, that's close enough. You don't need a lot of sesame oil, okay, because that's very powerful stuff. So you just want 2 tablespoons or so of it. And then as far as the 5 spice is concerned, same thing. It says 2 teaspoons of 5 spice, but the more of this stuff you put in, the more of that flavor. You can see it's a heaping spoon that I just put in there. So roughly about 2 tablespoons or 2 teaspoons of 5 spice, all right? And as far as ground white pepper, if you don't have white pepper, go ahead and put black pepper. It doesn't matter that much. And again, I'm just kind of eyeballing. It's way more than a half a teaspoon in there. But again, not that critical. So the hoisin sauce, I don't even put that in a teaspoon or tablespoon either. I will just squeeze that right in there. So I usually just count it down. And if I want 8 tablespoons, I'll count out maybe about 8 seconds worth of squeeze. Not that critical again. I didn't put any grated ginger in here because I didn't have any to put in. And typically I don't put it in anyways, but I know a lot of people do like it in there. You want to mix this as well and do it for a while. You want all of those ingredients to kind of blend together, and you want to melt that sugar. So you want that thing to dissolve as best as possible in there. So I'm just using a standard whisk, and I will whisk that up until I think it's got most of it mixed and incorporated together. So very easy to do. It's not a hard marinade to do. Now, when I put this stuff together, I will usually use a gallon-size freezer bag for Ziplocs, all right? Because I found that you don't want to use a cheap Ziploc bag. You don't want anything dripping out. And I'll fold the Ziploc bag over because I don't want to get any type of the marinade on the Ziploc part itself, because I want it to seal real well. Okay, so you can put an entire pork butt in a 1 gallon bag as long as you don't put the bone in there. If you leave the bone out, it'll fit into a typical gallon size Ziploc bag. Freezer bag is the best, really. And the reason I use the Ziploc is because when you're mixing it, it's a lot easier to mix it, and throughout the time, I'll just squeeze the bag a couple of times and rotate the bag a little bit, and that'll keep it all mixed up real well. Okay, so there's the bone. We don't need that, so I'm just gonna leave that out. And then let me just wash my hands here real quickly in the sink because you're touching the meat. Just a quick rinse is real good for now. And then just mix in the marinade. Just pour it right in there. Here we go. All right, get the last of that stuff in there. And then go ahead and seal up the bag. Okay, you want to make sure this is fully sealed. Now, usually I will put the bag inside a pan or something like that, or in other words, put the pan underneath it and then leave it in the refrigerator. So here, mixing is very simple. If you have it in a bag, it's much easier than just putting it inside a container and then trying to move the meat around. This way you can shake it, you can move it, you can rotate it, and you see everything covers up really well if you leave it in one of these Ziploc bags. And I usually take most of the air out of it. I'll do that a little bit later. Right now I'm just having it wide open so I can get the marinade around everything. So once that's all done, I will put it in the refrigerator overnight. Now you can do it for, I would say 2 to 4 hours. At least 4 hours makes it tastier, but I usually put it overnight. And after that's been sitting in the refrigerator for a while, I will take it out and I will work on it. All right. So I'm just putting this in some disposable aluminum pans because sometimes when you're cooking this, it makes it kind of hard to kind of get things off because it'll stick a little bit. But disposable aluminum pans really is the best way to do it. So it's a lot easier to do. So I use 2 of these pans, and then after all that's done, I will bake it at 375 degrees for at least 30 to 40 minutes or until the internal temperature reaches 145 to 150 degrees. Now it could go over a little bit, but you need it to be at least 145. Okay, so you want to make sure it's at that. I typically will cook by temperature more so than I do by time. So I'm using a ThermoWorks Thermapen Mark IV, and this is an instant read type thermometer. So this is very accurate, and I check all the various pieces to make sure that I am at least 145 to 150. So you can see here we're well over that. So it's done. Now halfway in between the cooking time, I will usually flip it so that it has a little bit decent cooking for both sides of the meat. So this is looking pretty good. Now you could put red dye in your marinade and it'll turn it red, like typically you'll see many of the Chinese restaurants will have it in red, but I'm just eating this for myself. I don't need to see it in red, so I'm not putting any type of dye. So again, you can see the ThermoWorks reads really fast. So you put it right in the middle and you can see I'm at about 166, 165 range. Some of them are passive, 179. So you can see we're good. And that was done in about 30 minutes. Okay, so it's really quick. And let me cut a little bit of the pieces here so that you can kind of see what it looks like in the inside here. So it's done and it's ready to go. So time to give it a taste test and see how this came out. Okay, now that the char siu is all done, let's give it a taste. I've already cut it up a little bit and I'm gonna give it a try here. So here it is. I would say it's just as good as you can find it in Chinatown. Yeah, it's true. Now, they do some additional things that I don't do, but man, that flavor is still there. Let me try another piece here. Take a big bite. Go out and get some ingredients, make your own char siu. If you like the video, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, and I will talk to you guys next time.